In this video, we will continue information on the age of anxiety in AP European history. So please continue to use this next page of your typed outline as your guide while taking notes and listening and watching the recorded PowerPoint videos. We have already covered part A of Roman numeral 2, which is modern philosophy. So part B says post-war philosophers and authors who expanded on the earlier pessimism. The first example of that is existentialism. This took root in continental countries after World War II. So we see in the wake of the horrors of World War II and the advent of the atomic age, pessimism and hopelessness were expressed by the existentialists. Existentialists saw life as absurd, with no inherent meaning. Basically, you were born, you lived your life, and then you died. They didn't believe in an afterlife. Either way, no heaven, no hell, nothing. They are considered atheists. So most of these existentialists are considered atheists. One of the French existentialist examples is Jean-Paul Sartre. He wrote that life had no meaning and that humans just simply exist. Another existentialist, who actually is from Algeria, believed that individuals had to find meaning to life by taking action against those things with which they disagree. So he believed one's actions are derived from personal choices that are independent from religion or political ideology. So it's pretty cut and dry when you study existentialism, and make sure you are familiar with these two examples. Next, we'll take a look at the art and entertainment of this age of anxiety. First, we start with the art world, and we see functionalism in architecture. Basically, that is referring to the function of an object should determine its design and materials. Late 19th century United States, we're going to see Louis Sullivan pioneer skyscrapers. He is going to practice what he refers to as form follows function. Some of y'all are familiar with his student, Frank Lloyd Wright, who pioneered the modern American house. So this was the teacher of Frank Lloyd Wright. And we know that Sullivan built a structure based on what the structure is going to be. That's what he means by form follows function. Well, in 1905, the architectural leadership shifted to German-speaking countries until, of course, Hitler comes along in the 1930s and starts changing things. The Bauhaus movement, that's how you pronounce that, Bauhaus movement. We see the well-known Walter Gropius. He broke sharply with the past in his design of the Fagus shoe factory at Alfeld, Germany, and this was in 1911. So it's definitely a new style. It's more modern architecture. I'm going to show you the actual factory here in just a minute. But what you're going to see is this clean, light, elegant building of glass and iron, which definitely represents the more modern style of architecture. So this is representing a jump into the middle of the 20th century. Later, the movement will be subdued by the Nazis because modernism came to be viewed as degenerate. So I'm going to show you what that building looked like. There it is. Extremely modern, with as far as our definition of modern goes. We also need to take a look at the art that represents some of the more modern styles, and we're going to take a look at some of the well-known painters of modern art. First, most important artist of the 20th century is going to be Pablo Picasso, and he is credited with developing Cubism along with a friend of his named George Braque. So when we look at Cubism, it's concentrating on this complex geometry of zigzagging lines, sharply angled, overlapping planes. When I show you some of his paintings, you will know right away they are very, characteristic of these features of Cubism. Most well-known masterpiece of Picasso is titled Guernica. So this is his masterpiece. It is a huge mural portraying the bombing of a Spanish city called Guernica by the German Luftwaffe during the Spanish Civil War that took place, in 1936. It's one of the quintessential artworks of the Age of Anxiety for its portrayal of suffering and death. So let me show you what this looks like. Here is Guernica, and you can see kind of to scale with this person standing here how large this truly is. So this is depicting the horrific bombing of the Spanish city Guernica during the Spanish Civil War that broke out in the 1930s. Fascism is threatening to take over Spain, and those who don't agree with fascism are fighting against, the supporters of fascists, and unfortunately the fascists do win. If you look closely at the painting, you can see the agony on the expression of these individuals who are experiencing a lot of suffering because of war. So remember, this is famous painting by Pablo Picasso titled Guernica. In addition to Cubism, another example of a modern art style during this time period is Dadaism. I know that sounds like something a child would say, but look at this. Dada was a nonsensical word, like hobby horse, that mirrored a post-World War I world that no longer made sense. So it fits the time period perfectly, where people just feel like they have no control over what goes on. And so that's going to be expressed in the art as well. It attacked all accepted standards of art and behavior, delighting in outrageous conduct. I'm telling y'all, this is basically a rebellion of artistic movements. These are people who are anti-art, and their works will shock the viewer because to the true artists out there, they do not view this as art. One of the examples is Marcel Duchamp. He is the leader of the Dadaism movement. These two works are perfect examples of Dadaism and what shocked people. The first work of his is titled Fountain. What he did, and I am not kidding you, I will show you what this looks like in a minute. He took a public bathroom urinal and named it the Fountain as a way of mocking traditional artistic standards. And then his work titled L.H.O.O.Q. Again, this is so silly what he did. He took a print of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa and simply painted a mustache on it. He drew a mustache in a beard, and you will not believe that this particular work of his is in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. This fountain sold for over $1 million at auction. Again, I mean, this just shows you how crazy the art world can be. Here's his L.H.O.O.Q. And I know you're wondering what in the world those letters are all about. Well, the letters pronounced in French sound like L.H.O.O.Q, meaning she is hot in the ass. So it's in reference to a woman who has sexual restlessness. Okay, so Hope that satisfies your curiosity and knowing what in the world that means. So we're going to use this typed outline to finish up the information on the age of anxiety. Our next example of a modern style of art is surrealism, and this was developed out of the Dada movement during World War I. The most important artist of surrealism is going to be Salvador Dali, and he was influenced by Sigmund Freud's emphasis on dreams, what we call psychoanalysis, and Freud's theory about dreams having meanings. So that's the inspiration for Salvador Dali when he came up with this art style known as surrealism. Well, after 1924, he painted a fantastic world of wild dreams and complex symbols where watches melted and giant metronomes beat time in impossible alien landscapes. His most famous painting you're going to see on the next slide is titled Persistence of Memory, and he painted this in 1931. So with surrealism, we see the portrayal of recognizable objects in an unrecognizable relationship in order to reveal the world of the unconscious. So here is his famous painting. This is Salvador Dali's Persistence of Memory. So you can see recognizable objects, clocks, in an unrecognizable relationship. Okay, the fact that these clocks are in a melting state. And again, what Dali is trying to do is reveal the world of our unconscious. This is something we would not typically see when we are awake. It would be something more in a dream-like world. Finally, in this era of modern art, we have what's called non-represental art. Some expressionists, like Wassily Kandinsky, he is Russian, sought to evoke emotion through non-figural painting. So make sure you associate Kandinsky as the father of abstract art. So, Kandinsky is tied to expressionism, and then within expressionism you have abstract art, which again fits this modern era of art. So that wraps up our information on the age of anxiety. Next, we're going to take a look at the democracies in Europe during this post-World War I era.